Alrighty, well, good evening, everybody. Like I said, my name is Marielle Starrett. I'm an education and career specialist here at Granite Advance, and that just means that I will be helping students from the moment that they decide what they want to do with their future, the moments before that when they have no idea, all the way through hitting submit and preparing for financial aid and how do you transition to college. We've got folks on our team who can do all of these things. We've got folks on our team who can help you when you're in college. We've got folks on our team who help you after you've been to college, or maybe you want to go back, or you are thinking about what you want to do with your retirement time. Wherever you are as a person who is thinking about their future, we are here to help you. And we will try to do that in lots of different ways, be that presentations like this, or recorded content, or written content on our website, or what we call our insider guides, which are kind of like insider tips and tricks on some of those bigger pieces of the puzzle, or one-on-one appointments, or if you have a quick question, you can shoot us an email at findyourdirection at graniteadvance.org or give us a call, and we're happy to help, right? And that's what gets me out of bed every morning is figuring out how to help you all. But if you are here tonight, that means that you are at a point in your application journey where you've been probably gearing up for a while. And maybe that's been a little bit of a nerve-wracking process, or maybe that's been an exciting process for you. But at this point, we're hoping that you are just about ready to hit submit on that application, but you want to take a second to pause, sit back, reflect, and review your application and see, okay, did I present myself as strong as I am hoping to, or is there some way that I can make my application a little bit better before I hit submit? And I do call this the application cycle because depending on how you're applying to schools or what schools you're applying to when, this is one cycle for one school. And then you'll be repeating some of the steps you won't have to duplicate so many times for each school that you plan to apply to, right? So by now you've probably got your list built, you've got your plan for when those deadlines are, what schools you might be applying to early, regular decision, rolling admission. You're keeping your mind open to possibilities. Maybe you know what New Hampshire schools you want to apply to at your apply in H date or whatever else it may be. You've gathered your materials, you've checked with school counseling on your transcript, and you've drafted either those school specific applications. Maybe you've got a Google Doc with a lot of that information so you can copy paste things over, or maybe you've got a Common App and you're applying to a lot of your schools through that, and you've started working on that. Maybe your family section is complete and your profile and all of those things. So what we're going to talk about tonight is how to review your application to make it as great as it can be before you hit submit. But what makes an application great? To me, the best college applications, or an application that would be great, is one that shows who you are, is complete and consistent, and is prepared and thoughtful. So this isn't something that's rushed. This is something that is accurate and complete and ready to go to be that kind of handshake for a school. Maybe this is the first time that an admissions officer is getting to know who you are. Maybe they've met you before at a college fair or a school visit, or you went and toured on campus, but this is your formal impression and you want to be able to show them who you are both in and out of the classroom and all of those things that you haven't been able to share with them before. Excuse me. We're going to break these down just a little bit, and we'll start with the first thing that makes a college application great, which is that it shows you who you are. So those great applications that really show, don't tell who you are, make that strong first impression. And they don't just share who you are inside the classroom through things like your transcript or your GPA, but they include all the things that you do outside of the classroom. So activities that can be family responsibilities, your after school jobs, sports, clubs, research, hobbies. There's even a spot for hobbies on the Common App. This can be challenges that you faced or things that you're really proud of. All of those things that kind of make you tick and get you up in the morning, because when you are on a college campus, you're going to be there full time, most likely. Even if you're commuting to campus, you might not just be commuting for just classes. You're a part of that community, and admissions wants to see what part you play in that community. Are you the person who's walking along the path with a professor? Are you the person who's walking along the path in a really fast pace because you're late for your shift at the dining hall? Or maybe you're laughing with friends, or you're lacing up your shoes to go on a run, or whatever else it is that you are doing to contribute to bring your presence to their campus and say, okay, like this is a person that we want to have on our campus. You don't want an application that leaves admissions hanging, that has kind of gaps, that has them going, huh, or that doesn't make sense, or I wouldn't have expected that. Sometimes a little bit of unexpected is good, but you don't want your activities list to show that you are a passionate juggler and then maybe you are a botanist too, but there's nothing kind of streamlining the two of those or showing, okay, what are the things that you value and enjoy that make sense? Or maybe you list on your application for the first 9 activities, soccer, 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 robotics. And then the admissions reader is going, huh, interesting. I didn't expect robotics to be on this list, or I was expecting more soccer, right? So you want to make sure that you're filling in those gaps and you're explaining the things that need to be explained. So the other thing you can think about with your college application is thinking of it as providing the context to who you are. So it's putting you in your environment, in your perspective. So thinking of how your transcript works with your activities list and how that works with your recommendation letters and your writing supplements and your essay and all of those things. How do they come together to make you who you are at this point in time? The other thing you don't want your application to do is duplicate the information. So if you have, say, maybe put 9 things about soccer on your activities list, I wouldn't go using your additional information section to tell me 10 more things that you've done with soccer, because that space has now been used. It's been established for the admissions reader that that's a part of who you are. That's how it's been used. And I'm not hating on soccer. I love soccer. I have a niece and nephew who play soccer, and it is my favorite thing to do on a Saturday to go watch them play. I think it's hilarious because they're little, but they are getting a lot better. So instead, you want to say, okay, maybe it's soccer and robotics. So tell me a little bit about what it is that gets you excited about that. Maybe that both have a lot of moving parts and both are very strategic, and that's something that's exciting to you. Or maybe it's, oh, I feel like on the soccer field, I can really exercise my physical space, whereas in the robotics lab, I can use and exercise my mental space and talk about that. And then maybe your essay is talking about something else that you value and experience, or something like family or your friends or finances or whatever it is that makes you you in the story that you want to tell. When you're thinking about this, you want to consider all of the different spaces that your application has presented you with to tell a little bit about your story. So you've got that big beefy chunk in your essay, which is 450 to 650 words, where you can tell whatever story you feel tells who you are in your words, as long as it's authentic and it's real. That's probably going to be one of the starting places for an admission reader. From the ones that we hear about, they love either starting with the essay or they start with your transcript, school profile. Some of them start with your rec letters. Very rarely are they starting with those things like your demographics. Instead, they want to see, okay, who are you as told by you, as told by the people around you, or maybe they do care about that academics at the first and foremost, right? But either way, they're going to be looking at all of the pieces of that puzzle. Some of them you have more autonomy over, depending on where you are. If you're at this point in the process where you're reviewing your application, you probably don't have a whole lot of autonomy over your transcript anymore from the last few years, right? That's kind of in the past, but you do have some autonomy over your essay or your activities list, and you want to spend a little bit more time. Maybe say, okay, I went to a workshop this summer on the essay, and I know that my essay is in really great shape. I reviewed it with Granite Advance or an English teacher, and I spent a lot of time telling my story, and I feel really good about it. But because I spent so much time on that, I neglected things like my activities list or my coursework and things like that. So maybe you spend 20, 30 minutes on that before you hit submit, because you say, okay, this will really help strengthen my application. So think again about the things that you have autonomy over, and then what context you have provided and what context other people have provided. So if you can always, you aren't going to be able to see your letters of recommendation, but if you haven't asked for them, you can always, when you ask for somebody to write a letter of recommendation, you can kind of guide them and say, like, this is what I remember about my experience with you, and remember this time that we did this, or I would really love if you would showcase this thing, because if they are writing a letter of rec for you, they are probably very excited about advocating for you and working with you, so make it a little bit of a two-way street, right? But think about what are the things that at this point in the process you can control, because you're not going to be able to go into the past and change a bunch of things. One of the ways that you can do that is by using strong, impactful language. We're all very aware that the Common App and college applications have pretty strict word counts, they have strict character counts. So make sure that you use them well, right? Maybe you spent a lot of time tailoring different pieces of your essay, but you've neglected certain pieces, or you've looked at something for so long that you're like, I can't possibly, like, it's perfect, it's great. Maybe take a break, walk away, come at it with fresh eyes, and then you say, oh my goodness, I used that word 4 times, and that is not a very common word. Is there a way that I could switch that? Or maybe you've said that you are resilient in 6 different ways, and maybe you want to showcase that not only are you resilient, but you're also charismatic or funny or curious or excited. And you want to say, okay, that's already been told in one way. Let me tell something else in the other space that's been given to you. But most importantly, you want to maintain your voice. This is your application told by you because it's you going to college. So make sure that in all that wonderful editing that you've done, all those reviews, all those drafts, where you got lots of help from the people who love you and your network, that you didn't take out your voice. It's okay to be authentic. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be you because that's what admissions wants to see. So that's how a good application shows who you are, right? It's authentic, it's real, it has those things that are important to you. It doesn't duplicate, it doesn't leave them hanging, but it makes that strong first impression that really shows who you are completely. Speaking of complete, the next characteristic of a great college application is that it is complete and consistent. When you are looking at your essay, or not your essay, your application, all of the pieces, look at your essay, make sure that it didn't chop off some words because you went over the word count. Make sure you filled in all required fields on every application. Most times they have that little asterisk or star. Make sure that you are using the preview feature on your application so that you can see exactly what admissions is going to see when your application comes in. And then check again those school specific sections. You might have filled out all of the specifics for your profile and the common part of your Common App, but did you go through school by school to make sure that you answered all the questions that they're looking for, that you took the time with supplementals to answer their specific question, make the connection between you and them, and you did a little bit of extra research and put some extra time and thought into it, even though it is near the end of your application and you've been working on it for so long. Make sure you were thoughtful and you didn't say this school's name in a different school's application. Make sure that you're thinking about, all of those things. Did it match up? Does your legal name, is it represented everywhere? So if you have a nickname, right? So if you go by Will, but your real name's William, make sure that you've put William wherever it asks for your name so that it matches your transcript and your letters of recommendation, but that Will is in preferred name because admissions wants to get to know you and they want to talk to you. So maybe they'll address your emails as Will, but they want to see your connect all those dots in their system through William, right? Make sure that you are helping them so you don't get a delay because of something like red tape or bureaucracy. We talked a little bit about using that space. You want to make sure that it's intentional, not overly repetitive. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of repetition if there are certain points that you really want to hammer home, and you can absolutely do that. And then talk about who you are and all of the wonderful sides that you have, right? Maybe you really like Pokemon, but you also really like to knit and you really like to go birding, or maybe you really like making grape juice by hand, or maybe you have a cow, or maybe whatever it is, that fill in the blank, right? Share some of that. If you think it's important and you think that it shows different aspects of you, you can include that. Chances are there's probably a spot on your Common App that if it's important to you, you can include it. What you don't want to do is oversell the time that you are spending on activities, because admissions readers can do math. So just go back and double check, make sure that your days per week, hours per day, weeks per year, all that makes sense and it's true and accurate based on the time you actually spent on that. And it's okay if you spent less time on certain things and more time on other things. Make sure that it's accurate because you want your entire application to be accurate. Same thing with those self-reported test scores and the level of your classes, and make sure that everything kind of matches up the way it should, because you want to be true and honest on your application, because that's a great way to make a strong first impression, right? The other thing you don't want to do is underestimate the power of those interests and activities, right? A lot of students come to us and they say, yeah, I did this thing and I was a member of this thing. Okay, well, what did you contribute to that environment? What did you do to shape that environment? Were you the person who was making sure that there were snacks for every meeting, or diligently taking notes, or you always had a creative poster for upcoming events that you were putting up, or you were making sure that there was attendance and that everybody was on time, or you were making sure that whatever it was that you were doing to make that activity run, right? Maybe it's at your job and you were closing every single night. So you wanted to make sure that the floor was spick and span because food service is no joke, and you wanted to make sure that it was nice and clean so that in the morning when the openers come in at the crack of dawn, they aren't feeling frustrated. Instead, they can focus on customer experience or whatever it is, right? You can take that thing that you did and add a little bit of impact, especially when you're thinking about word counts, right? You only have so many words. Infuse it the best you can. The next piece of the puzzle is making sure that your application is prepared and thoughtful, right? And we've talked a lot about what this means generally, but on a more specific level, making sure that in those supplemental essays, if they're required of you, that you make the connection between you and the school. Why us is why you, and why them, and why they go together, and why that is a match made in heaven, right? You want to make sure that you do a little bit of research, right? That makes sense to say, okay, like, I'm interested in this school because of this specific thing that you offer that maybe nobody else offers, or I like the way that you offer this thing, or the type of class, right? You don't inherently want to say, oh, I love the weather where that is, because that's kind of generic. And you could have picked a lot of different schools that match that climate. Instead, pick, you did all the time and effort to build your list. Why did you put that school on your list? And I know it can be tiring, but I know you got it in you to keep it going just a little bit. Some other things to consider, those test scores, making sure that you're only sending your test scores to the schools that you are intending to send your test scores to. So this might mean sending them in batches. Maybe you send your test scores to the schools that you want to send, and then you go back into the common piece of your common application and you remove your test scores completely, so that when you hit submit on the other schools, that way there's no chance that they're getting those test scores from you. Letters of recommendation, making sure that you ask for those nice and early. You might want to politely remind whoever is one of your recommenders and say, hey, I'm planning to apply to this school, especially if you're applying over the weekend and they might not work weekends, and say, hey, I'm planning to apply to this school. Do you mind uploading the letter of recommendation at this day and time, or to make sure that it gets there, right? Because that's part of your application being complete. And then some schools offer fee waivers, and depending on how you're applying, where you're applying, they might vary, right? If you're applying at an Apply NH day, you can apply to most or all New Hampshire schools for no cost to you for that application. Or if you're applying, some schools will have a fee waiver built into their school specific application, but they won't on the Common App. Sometimes you can call and ask admissions if they have a fee waiver, or if you have one, making sure that you spend the time to go into the school specifics and add them in the correct place so that they are tracked and applied properly. So let's talk about some of those final edits for emphasis, right? You're perfecting your dive into the water, so you're getting all 10s across the board, right? You want it to be streamless. And if you know anything about diving, you know that this diver made a little bit too big of a splash. And yes, your application should make a good splash, right? But an appropriate splash. Thinking about, we've talked a lot about edits that you can make on your application, but when is your deadline, right? If you only have 2 hours before your deadline, you're not going to want to go rewriting your college essay, but instead you might say, okay, I'm going to double check for my punctuation, my spelling, and make sure I didn't miss any fields. And maybe I'm going to rethink about this one activity on my activities list. Or maybe you do have some time and you're thinking, okay, I've spent a lot of time and energy on this, but I would love if somebody would give it a second set of eyes. And then you can come and sit down with one of us and we'll talk and walk you through it. Or maybe you set up an appointment with your school counselor, or you intentionally are saying, okay, I'm going to give myself 3 days to not think about this. That way, when I can come back on the third day, I've got completely fresh eyes and I can be focused and have a new outlook on it, right? So if you do have limited time, you should be checking for things like depth, passion, coverage, so making sure that that holistic picture is painted, and then drive, right? You want to show who you are, why you did it, what gets you up in the morning, right? I said, what gets me up in the morning is finding new ways to help people. And that's true, right? Be that helping myself by making a better coffee, or helping my neighbors by opening a door, or some community service project, or helping a student with their essay. That's what wakes me up in the morning. So I'd want to make sure that that is included in my essays, in my activities list, in my wherever else may be, right? I want to show that I'm passionate about things. I want to show the depth of experiences that I have, or maybe the breadth if you are a little bit more of a Jack or Jill of all trades. But then focusing on the places that you have autonomy for that, right? You can infuse depth, passion, drive, coverage in those places like your essays, your activities. Some students might use the additional information section depending on if there are gaps in their application and a need to add some more of that context. Those school specific supplements really allow you to share why you're passionate about that school, right? Or why you're passionate about the thing that you're choosing to study over the next few years, right? Think about all of those things. And then once you have kind of thought about that, or maybe before you think about that, you can use the preview feature to see what an admissions reader is going to see in your application. It's usually in the top right corner. And then you can say, okay, if I was somebody else, can I see the level of passion and depth and drive and all of the other wonderful things in what I wrote, right? You got to take a step back and look at it pragmatically. And one of the best ways you can do that is giving yourself a little bit of time, space, grace. And if you don't have the time to give yourself that, ask somebody else who cares about you to see if they have the time and energy to say, okay, could you please look at my application using the preview feature and write down 3 things that you took away from my application, or what you think my top 5 values are, the top 5 things that are most important to me, or maybe one thing that you think that I could do to add more impact before I hit submit, right? Those are lots of different ways that you can use yourself and your network and all of the wonderful resources that you have available to you. And then you're right there, right? Right before you're about to hit submit. And I want to take a moment to just pause. If you made it through this far and you made it through this webinar, you just want to hit pause right before you hit submit, right? Don't hit submit, hit pause and think about it. Does this tell your whole story? Is this the impression that you want to make? Does it feel like your best work? Did you include all of the schools that you want to include at this point when you're submitting those waves of application? And are you submitting your application because you're ready, or are you submitting your application because the deadline is approaching and you're feeling rushed? Think about all of these things. When you do hit submit, you want to be calm, confident, and you can be a little bit nervous because it is a big decision and you can have a little bit of jitters, but you want to make sure that you've put the time, energy, and thoughtfulness into all of this to make sure that you're ready to present your best self. And I think it's okay if you take a second to just pause, reflect, and be like, okay, I feel good about this. And that way, when you hit submit, you can do that with confidence. And if you need some help with that, we are happy to help you. We are almost always happy to help folks. So if you want that second set of eyes before you hit submit, or you want to chat about maybe adding some other schools to your list, or you need somebody to look over your essay, or you don't know what apply NH is and you want somebody to help it out with that, or maybe you've already submitted your first round of applications and now they're asking for your FAFSA or your CSS profile and you're going, I don't really know what all that is, or I've narrowed it down to a few schools, but I would love if you would help me understand some financial aid. We're happy to sit down and talk to you about any of that. So you can book an appointment with us. You can call us. You can, in the words of Kim Possible, beep us if you want to reach us. So you can email us, call us. You can set up an appointment. We're happy to sit down with you. But there's also resources in your own building, and that building might be your house, and that building might be your school. So check with your friends, your family, your network, your school counselor. Check with apply NH dates, because sometimes admissions readers are there to help, and they'll help you with their perspective and professionalism, look at their application as an admissions reader and tell you what they would talk about, right? And if you're having trouble with any piece of the process, check in with your support system. There are a lot of people here who want to help you and want to see you succeed and want you to reach the goals that you've now set for yourself. So make sure you take time to pause before you hit submit, reflect, and ask for help when you need it. And I want to say thank you for coming and being with us tonight. If you do need some extra support from our team, feel free to scan that QR code on the right side. That'll bring you to our contact page. There's lots of wonderful ways for you to call us, beep us if you want to reach us. And we are more than happy to help. And congratulations on finishing the next step in your college going journey.